Chapter 27. Connor. The morning after the bathroom incident, they are rousted awake by the fatigues before dawn. Everybody up! Now! Move it! Move it! They're loud, they're on the edge, and the first thing Connor notices is that the safeties on their weapons are off. Still blurry from sleep, he rises and looks for Risa. He sees her already being herded by two fatigues toward a huge double door that has always been padlocked. Now the padlock is off. Leave your things. Go. Move it. Move it. To his right, a cranky kid pushes a fatigue for tearing away his blanket. The fatigue hits him on the shoulder with the butt of his rifle. Not enough to seriously wound him, but enough to make clear to the kid and everyone else that they mean business. The kid goes down on his knees, gripping his shoulders and cursing, and the fatigue goes about the business of hurting the others. Even in his pain, the kid looks ready for a fight. As Connor passes him, Connor grabs him by the arm and helps him up. Take it easy, Connor says. Don't make it worse. The kid pulls out of Connor's grip. Get off me! I don't need your stinking help. The kid storms away. Connor shakes his head. Was he ever that belligerent? Belligerent? That's what I'm saying. You know, as I read this book, I realize that I don't know that many words. Up ahead, the huge double doors are slid open to reveal another room of the warehouse that the Unwinds have never seen. This one is filled with crates. Old airline packing crates, designed both in shape and durability, to transport goods by air freight. Connor immediately realizes that what they're for, and why he and the others have been warehoused so close to an airport. Wherever they're going as air cargo. Girls to the left, boys to the right. Move it! Move it! There's grumbling, but no direct defiance. Connor wonders how many kids get what's going on. 4 to a crate, boys and girls, boys with boys, girls with girls. Move it! Move it! Now everyone begins to scramble around, trying to team up with their preferred travel companions, but the fatigues never have patience nor time for it. They randomly create groups of 4 and push them towards the crates. That's when Connor notices how dangerously close he is to Roland. And that's no accident. Roland moves close to him on purpose. Connor can just imagine it. Pitch black and close quarters. If he's in a crate with Roland, then he'll be dead before takeoff. Connor tries to move away, but a fatigue grabs Roland, Connor, and 2 of Roland's known collaborators. You 4, that crate over there. Connor tries not to let his panic show. He doesn't want Roland to see. He should have prepared his own weapon, like the one Roland certainly had concealed on him now. He should have prepared for the inevitability of life or death confrontation, but he hadn't, and now his options are limited. No time for thinking this through, so he lets impulse take over and gives into his fighting instincts. He turns one of Roland's henchmen and punches him in the face hard enough to draw blood, maybe even break his nose. The force of the punch spins the kid around. Before he can come back for a counter assault, the fatigue grabs Connor and smashes him back against the concrete wall. The fatigue doesn't know it, but this is exactly what Connor wanted. You picked the wrong day to do that, kid, says the fatigue, holding the gun against him against the wall with his rifle. What are you gonna do? Kill me? I thought you were trying to save us. That gives the fatigues a moment pause. Hey, yells another fatigue. Forget him. We gotta load him up. Then he grabs another kid to complete the force with Roland and his henchmen, sending them toward the crate. They don't even care about the one kid's spleen nose. The fatigue holding Connor against the wall sneers at him. Sooner you're in the box, the sooner you're somebody else's problem. Nice socks, says Connor. They put Connor in a 4x8 crate that already has 3 kids waiting to complete their quartet. The crate is sealed before he can see who's inside with him, but not as long as it's not Roland, it will do. We're all gonna die in here, he says in a nasal voice, followed by a wet sniff that doesn't sound like it clears much of anything. Connor knows this kid by his mucus. He's not sure of his name. Everyone just calls him the mouth breather. Since his nose is perpetually stuffed. MB for short. He's the one always obsessively reading his comic book, but he can't quite do that in here. Don't talk like that, says Connor. If the fatigues wanted to kill us, they would have done it a long time ago. The mouth breather has foul breath that's filling up the whole crate. Maybe they found out. Maybe the juvie cops are on their way. And the only way to save themselves is to destroy the evidence. You see the new Spider-Man comics? Connor has little patience for whiners. It reminds him too much of his younger brother. The one his parents chose to keep. Shut up, Amby, or I swear I'm gonna take off my sock, shove it in your stingy mouth, and finally have to figure out a way to breathe through your nose. Let me know if you need an extra sock, says a voice just across the room. Hi, Connor. It's Hayden. Hey, Hayden. Connor reaches out and finds Hayden's shoe, squeezing it, closest thing to green in the claustrophobic darkness. So, who's lucky number 4? No answer. Sounds like we must be traveling with a mime. Another long pause. Then Connor hears a deep accented voice. Diego. Diego doesn't talk much, says Hayden. I figured. They wait in silence, punctuated by the mouth breather's snorts. I gotta go to the bathroom. I gotta go to the bathroom. You should have thought about that before you left, says Hayden, putting on his best mother voice. How many times do we have to tell you? Always use the potty before climbing into a shipping crate. There's some sort of mechanical activity outside. Then they feel the crate moving. I don't like this, whines Amby. We're being moved. By forklift, probably, says Connor. Fatigues are probably long gone by now. What was it that one fatigue had said? Once you're in a box, you're somebody else's problem. Whoever's been hired to ship them probably has no clue what's in the crates. Soon they'll be on board some aircraft, head to an undisclosed destination. The thought of it makes him think about the rest of his family and their trip to the Bahamas. The one they'd planned to take Connor on once Connor was unwound. He wondered if they went. Will they still take their vacation, even after Connor had kicked AWOL? Sure they would. They were planning to take it once he got unwound. So why would his escape stop them? Hey, wouldn't it be funny if we were being shipped to the Bahamas too? We're going to suffocate. I know it. Announces the mouth breather. Will you shut up? Says Connor. I'm sure there's more than enough air in here for us. How do you know? I can barely breathe already. And I got asthma too. I could have an asthma attack in here and die. Good, says Connor. One less person breathing the air. That shuts Amby up. But Connor feels bad after having said it. No one's gonna die, he says. Just relax. And then Hayden says, at least dying's better than being unwound. Or is it? Let's take a poll. Would you rather die or be unwound? Don't ask things like that, snaps Connor. I don't want to think about that either. Somewhere outside of their little created universe, Connor hears a metal hatch closing and can feel the vibration in his feet as they begin to taxi. Connor waits. Engines power up. Connor waits. Engines power up. He can feel the vibration in his feet. He's pushed back against the wall as they accelerate. Hayden tumbles into him, and he shifts over. Sorry about that. Giving Hayden room to get comfortable again. What's happening? What's happening? Nothing. We're just taking off. What? We're on a plane? Connor rolls his eyes, but the gesture is lost in the darkness. The box is like a coffin. The box is like a womb. Normal measures of time don't seem to apply, and the unpredictable turbulence of flight fills the dark space with a never-present tension. Once they're airborne, the 4 kids don't speak for a very long time. Half an hour. An hour, maybe. It's hard to tell. Everyone's mind is trapped in the holding pattern of their own uneasy thoughts. A plane hits some rough air. Everything around them rattles. Connor wonders if there are kids in crates above him or below them and on every side. He can't hear their voices if they are. From where he sits, it feels like it feels like the four of them are the only ones in the universe. MB silently relieves himself. That's him silently relieving himself. He thinks it's silent, but it's really not. Connor knows, but because he can smell it. Everyone can, but no one says anything. Could just as easily have been one of them, and depending on how long the trip is, it still could be. Finally, after feels whatever, like forever, the quiet of them expiates. Unwound, Diego says. I'd rather be unwound. Even though it's been a long time since Hayden posed the question, Carter knows immediately what it refers to. Would you rather die or be unwound? It's like the question is hung in him, cramped in the darkness all the time, waiting to be answered. Not me, says MB. Because if you die, at least you go to heaven. Heaven? Think Connor. Most likely they go to the other place. Because if their parents didn't care enough about them to keep them, who would want them in heaven? What makes you think unwinds don't go? Diego asks Emmy. Because unwinds aren't really dead. They're still alive. Sort of. I mean, they have to use every part of it somewhere, right? That's the law. Then Hayden asks a question. Not a question. The question. Asking it has been the great taboo among those marked for unwinding. It's what everyone thinks about, but no one ever dares to ask out loud then. So then, as says Hayden, if every part of you is alive, but inside someone else, are you alive, or are you dead? This, Connor knows, is Hayden bringing his hand back and forth across the flame again. Close enough to feel it, but not close enough to burn. But it's not just his own hand now, it's everyone's. It ticks Connor off. Talking wastes our oxygen, Connor says. We should agree that unwinding sucks and leave it at that. Shuts everyone else up, but only for a minute. It's MB who talks next. I don't think unwinding is bad, he says. I just don't want it to happen to me. Connor wants to ignore him, but can't. There's one thing that Connor can't abide. It's an unwind who defends unwinding. So it's all right if it happens to us, but not if it happens to you. I didn't say that. Yes, you did. Oh, says Hayden. This is getting good. They say it's painless, says MB. As if that were any consolation. Yeah, says Connor. Well, why don't you go ask the piece of Humphrey Dumphrey how painless it was. The name settles like a frost around them. The jolts, rattles of turbulence grow sharper. That's the turbulence. So, you have heard that story too, says Diego. Just because there are stories like that doesn't mean unwinding is all bad. Oh, that's MB. Oh, now MB sounds cool. I gotta restart that. just because there are stories like that doesn't mean unwinding is all bad, says MB. It helps people. You sound like a tithe, says Diego. Connor finds himself personally insulted by that. No, he doesn't. I know a tithe. His ideas might have been a little bit out there, but he wasn't stupid. The thought of Lev brings him a wave of despair. Connor doesn't fight it. He just lets it wash through him, then drain away. He doesn't know a tithe. He knew one. One who has certainly met his destiny by now. Are you calling me stupid? Says Emby. I think I just did. Hayden laughs. Hey, the mouth breather is right. Unwinding does help people. If it wasn't for unwounding, there'd be bald guys again. And wouldn't that be horrible? Diego snickers. But Connor is not the least bit amused. Emby, why don't you do us all a favor and use your mouth for breathing instead of talking until we land, or crash, or whatever. You think I'm stupid, but I got a good reason for the way I feel, Emby says. When I was little, I was diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis. Both my lungs were shutting down. I was going to die. So they took out both my dying lungs and gave me a single lung from an unwind. The only reason I'm alive is because that kid got unwound. So, says Connor, your life is more important than his? He was already unwound. It's not like I did it to him. If I didn't get that lung, someone else would have. In his anger, Connor's voice begins to rise, even though Emby's only a couple feet away at most. If there wasn't unwinding, there'd be fewer surgeons and more doctors. If there wasn't unwinding, they'd go back to try and cure disease instead of just replacing stuff with someone else's. Suddenly, the mouth breather's voice rings out like a ferocity that would catch Connor by surprise. Wait till you're the one who's dying and see the way you feel about it. I'd rather die than be a piece of an unwind, Connor yells back. The mouth breather tries to shout something else, but instead goes into a coughing fit that lasts a whole minute. It gets so bad it frightens even Connor. It's like it might actually cough up his transplanted lung. You okay? Asks Diego. Yeah, says Emby, trying to get it under control. Like I said, the lung's got asthma. It's the best we could afford. Seems like there's nothing more to say, except this. If your parents went through all that trouble, asks Hayden, why were they having you unwound? Hayden has questions. This one shuts the Emby down for a few moments. It's clearly a tough topic for him. Maybe even tougher than it is for most unwinds. My parents didn't sign the order, Emby finally says. My dad died when I was little, and my mom died 2 months ago. That's when my aunt took me in. The thing is, my mom left me some money, but my aunt's got 3 kids of her own to put through college, so... He doesn't have to finish. The others can connect with the dots. Man, that stinks, says Diego. Yeah, says Connor. His anger at Emby now transferred to Emby's aunt. It's always about money, Hayden says. When my parents were splitting up, they fought over money till there was none left. Then they fought over me. So I got out before there was none left of me either. Silence falls again. There's nothing to hear but the drone of the engine and the rattle of the crates. The air is humid, and it's a struggle to breathe. Connor wonders if maybe the fatigues miscalculated about how much air they had. We're all gonna die in here. That's what Emby said. Connor bangs his head sharply against the wall, hoping to jar loose the bad thoughts clinging to his brain. That's him hitting the wall. This is not a good place to be alone with your thoughts. Perhaps that's why Hayden feels compelled to talk. No one ever answered my question, Hayden says. Looks like no one has the guts. Which one? Asks Connor. You got questions coming out of you like farts on Thanksgiving. If I was asking if unwinding kills you, or just leaves you alive somehow. Come on, it's not like we haven't thought about it. Emby says nothing. He's clearly been weakened by coughing and conversation. Connor's not interested in volunteering either. It depends, says Diego. Depends on where your soul is once you're unwound. Normally, Connor would talk away from a conversation like this. His life is about tangibles, things you can see, hear, and touch. God, souls, and all that has never been a secret in a black box he couldn't see into. So it's easier to just leave it alone. Only now he's inside the black box. What do you think, Connor? Asks Hayden. What happens to your soul when you get unwound? Who says I even got one? For the sake of argument, let's say you do. Who says I want an argument? Hey, Jolie, just give him an answer, man. He won't leave you alone. Connor squirms, but he can't squirm his way out of the box. How should I know what happens to it? Maybe it gets all broken up like the rest of us into a bunch of little pieces. But his soul isn't like that, says Diego. It's indivisible. If it's indivisible, says Hayden, maybe an unwind spirit stretches out, kind of like a giant balloon between all those parts of us in other places. Very poetic. Hayden might find poetry in it, but to Connor the thought is terrifying. He tries to imagine himself stretched so thin and so wide. Wait, I lost my place. So thin and so wide that he can reach around the world. He imagines his spirit like a web strung between the 1,000 recipients of his hands, eyes, and the fragments of his brain. None of it under his control anymore. All absorbed by the bodies and wills of others. Could consciousness exist like that? He thinks about the trucker who performed a card trick for him with an unwind's hand. Did the boy who once owned that hand still feel the satisfaction of performing the trick? Was his spirit still inexplicably whole, even though his flesh had been shuffled like that deck of cards? Or was he shredded beyond all hope of awareness? Beyond heaven, hell, or anything eternal? Whether or not souls exist, Connor doesn't know, but consciousness does exist. That's something he knows for sure. If every part of an unwind is still alive, then that consciousness has to go somewhere, doesn't it? He silently curses Hayden for making him think about it. But Hayden isn't done yet. Here's a little brain clot for you, says Hayden. I knew this girl back home. There was something about her that made you want to listen to the things she had to say. I don't know whether she was really self-centered or just psychotic. She believed that if someone actually gets unwound, then they never have a soul to begin with. She said God must know who's going to be unwound, and he doesn't give them souls. Diego grunts his disapproval. I don't like the sound of that. The girl had it all worked out in her head, continued Hayden. She believed unwinds were like the unborn. Wait a second, says Emby, finally breaking his silence. The unborn have souls. They have souls from the moment they're made. The law says. Connor doesn't want to get into it again with Emby, but he can't help himself. Just because the law says it, that doesn't make it true. Yeah, just because the law... yeah. Well, just because the law says it, that doesn't make it false either. It's only law because a whole lot of people thought about it and decided it makes sense. Says Diego. The mouth breather has a point. Maybe so. The way Connor sees it, a point ought to be sharper than that. How can you pass laws about things that nobody knows? They do it all the time, says Hayden. That's what law is. Educate guesses at right and wrong. And what the law says is fine with me, says Emby. But if it weren't for the law, would you still believe it? Asks Hayden. Share with us a personal opinion, Emby. Prove there's more than a snot in that cranium of yours. You're wasting your time, says Connor. There's not. Give our congested friend a chance, says Hayden. They wait. The sound of the engines changes. Connor can feel them begin to slow to scent, and wonders if the others can feel it too. Then Emby says, Unborn babies. They stuck their thumbs sometimes, right? And they kick. Maybe before that, they're just like a bunch of cells or something. But once they kick and sense their thumbs, that's when they got a soul. Good for you, says Hayden. That's an opinion. I knew you could do it. Connor's head begins to spin. Was it the plane's banking or the lack of oxygen? Connor. Fair is fair. And be found an opinion somewhere. In his questionable gray matter. Now you have to give yours. Connor sighs, not giving the strength to fight anymore. Not having the strength to fight anymore. He thinks about the baby he and Risa so briefly shared. If there's such a thing as a soul, I'm not saying that there is, but when it comes to a baby's born, when a baby is born into the world, before that, it's just part of the mother. No, it's not, says Emby. Hey, you wanted my opinion. I gave it. But it's wrong. You see, Hayden? See what you started? Yes, Hayden says excitedly. Looks like we're about to have our own little Heartland war. Pity is too dark for us to watch it. If you want my opinion, you're both wrong, says Diego. The way I see it, it's got nothing to do with all that. It has to do with love. Uh-huh, says Hayden. Diego's getting romantic. I'm moving to the other side of the crate. No, I'm serious. A person don't got a soul until that person is loved. If a mother loves her baby, wants her baby, it's got a soul from the moment she knows it's there. The moment you're loved, that's when you got your soul. Punto. Yeah, says Connor. Well, what about all those babies that get storked? Or all those kids in state schools? They just better hope someone loves them someday. Connor snorts dismissively, but in spite of himself, he can't dismiss it entirely, any more than he can dismiss the other things he's heard today. He thinks about his parents. Did they ever love him? Certainly they did when he was little, and just because they stopped didn't mean his soul was stolen away. Although sometimes, to admit that it felt like it was, or at least part of it died when his parents signed the order. Diego, that's really sweet, Hayden says in his best mocking voice. No, Hayden, Diego, that's really sweet, Hayden says in his best mocking voice. Maybe you should write greeting cards. Maybe I should write them on your face. Hayden just laughs. You always poke fun at other people's opinions, says Connor. How about you come and give your own? Yeah, says Emby. You're just playing people for your own entertainment. Now it's your turn. Entertain us. Yeah, says Emby. So tell us, says Connor. In the world, according to Hayden, when do we start to live? A long silence from Hayden, and then he says quietly, uneasily, I don't know. Emby razzes him. That's not an answer! But Connor reaches out and grabs Emby's arm to shut him up, because Emby's wrong. Even though Connor can't see Hayden's face, he can hear the truth of it in his voice. There was no hint of evasion in Hayden's words. This was the raw honesty, void of Hayden's usual flip attitude. It was perhaps the first truly honest thing Connor had ever heard him say. Yes, it is an answer, Connor says. Maybe it's the best answer of all. If more people could admit that they really don't know, maybe there never would have been a Heartland War. There's a mechanical jolt beneath them. Emby gasps. Landing gear, says Connor. All right. In a few minutes, they'll be there. Wherever there is. Connor tries to guess how long they've been in the air. 90 minutes? 2 hours? There's no telling what direction they've been flying. They could have been touching down anywhere. Maybe Emby was right. Maybe it's piloted by Mook Control and they're just ditching the whole plane in the ocean to get rid of the evidence. Or what if it's worse than that? What if it's a harvest camp after all? Says Emby. Connor doesn't tell him to shut up this time, because he's thinking about the same thing. It's Diego who answers him. If it is, then I want my fingers to go to a sculptor, so I can use them to craft something that will last forever. But think about that. Hayden is the next to speak. If I'm unwound, says Hayden, I want my eyes to go to a photographer who shoots supermodels. That's what I want these eyes to see. My lips will go to a rock star, says Connor. These legs are definitely going to the Olympics. My ears to an orchestra conductor. My stomach to a food critic. My biceps to a bodybuilder. I wouldn't wish my sinuses on anyone. And they're all laughing as the plane touches down. Ha 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 ha. That's all their different laughs. It's the end of 27. Another pretty long one. Looks like the plane's landing and they don't know what's gonna happen.